You know, when you think about it, modern cataract surgery is kind of a miracle. A surgeon makes this tiny, tiny incision, gets in there, removes a cloudy lens, and bam, sight is restored, often without any stitches. It's absolutely incredible. But the real hero of the story, it's a force that's completely invisible, a tool you can't see or even hear.
So that's the big question, right? How on earth can something as intangible as a sound wave be used to perform one of the most delicate surgeries you can possibly imagine? How does that even work?
Well, the answer is as simple as it is mind-blowing. We've figured out how to harness the raw physical power of sound and turn it into an ultra-precise, invisible scalpel. And the tech that makes it happen is just fascinating.
Okay, so to understand this invisible scalpel, we've got to go right to the source, and that's the surgical handpiece. This little device right here is where all the magic happens. It's where a surgeon's command gets turned into a force that can literally restore sight.
Now, the official fancy name for this whole procedure is phacoemulsification. But the key word here is ultrasound. We're talking about sound waves that are vibrating more than 20,000 times a second. I mean, that's a frequency so high, it's way, way beyond what any human can hear. And that's exactly why we call it an invisible force.
And this is where it all kicks off. It's just this incredible conversion of energy. It starts with a simple electrical signal, right? That signal zaps these special things called piezoelectric crystals, and they immediately start to vibrate like crazy. Those vibrations then get amplified, which makes the surgical tip oscillates at an unbelievable ultrasonic speed. Just think about that for a second. You go from a little pulse of electricity to a powerful, precise, physical force, all in a blink of an eye.
So, we've got this tiny tip vibrating faster than we can even wrap our heads around, but how does that vibration actually, break up a cataract? It's not just about brute force. Nope, it's a really clever two-pronged attack. First up, you've got what we can call the jackhammer effect. This is pretty straightforward. The tip is literally making physical contact with the lens, mechanically chipping away at it. But here's the really cool part. It's called cavitation. See, that same ultrasonic energy creates millions of microscopic bubbles in the fluid that's already in the eye. And when those bubbles instantly collapse on themselves, they release these tiny but incredibly powerful shock waves. So it's like having a microscopic demolition crew helping to break the lens apart from all sides. You've got brute force and elegant physics working together in perfect harmony.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. Unleashing that much raw power inside somebody's eye sounds a little scary. And you'd be right. That's why the most crucial part of this whole thing isn't just creating the power, it's controlling it with absolute, precise, pinpoint precision. So, surgeons are constantly in this balancing act. On one hand, they could use continuous energy, basically just keeping that jackhammer on the whole time. It's super fast, but it generates a ton of heat. On the other hand, they can use pulsed energy, delivering that ultrasound in these little short bursts. That's way, way safer when it comes to heat, but yeah, it can slow the procedure down a bit. It's all about finding that perfect sweet spot for every single patient. So how do they control that balance? Well, it's with something called the duty cycle. You can basically think of it as the master control dial for the power. It lets the surgeon set the exact percentage of time that the ultrasound is actually on. So if they're working in a really delicate area, they can dial it way down for minimal heat, but for a tougher part of the cataract, they can crank it right up. It is precision control on a microscopic level.
And the fine-tuning doesn't stop there. Oh no. Surgeons can also adjust the amplitude, which is basically how far the tip moves back and forth with each vibration. A longer stroke means more power. And a lot of modern tools also add this twisting, side-to-side motion, which is amazing for cutting efficiently without just pushing little bits of the lens away. Every single element is just designed for maximum control and, of course, safety.
Okay, we've mentioned it a few times now, but let's really talk about the single biggest risk when you're wielding this much power inside the eye, and that's heat. Managing this unwanted side effect is absolutely positively critical. So where does all this dangerous heat come from? Well, it's mainly three things. First, you've got simple friction from the tip vibrating against the incision. Makes sense. Second, the tissues inside the eye actually absorb some of that ultrasonic energy, and that energy turns into heat. And finally, if the fluid that's supposed to be cooling everything down gets blocked for any reason, well, temperatures can shoot up dangerously fast.
But of course, for this big problem, there is an equally elegant solution. The handpiece has this brilliant built-in cooling system. It's constantly flushing the area with a special fluid to wash away heat. There's even a special sleeve around the tip that creates a perfect little channel for this cooling fluid to flow right where it's needed most. It's just a beautifully simple and effective piece of engineering that makes the whole thing safe. So,
Let's just pull all that together for a second. We started with a simple electrical signal, and we watched it get transformed into this incredible, invisible scalpel. We saw how that scalpel uses a 1-2 punch, that direct jackhammer, and those subtle shock waves to get the job done. And, maybe most importantly, we saw how every last bit of that power is precisely controlled and kept safe by a really clever cooling system. What an amazing piece of tech.
And you know, this quote from our source material really just hits the nail on the head. This whole thing isn't just about surgical technique. It's really about applied physics. A deep understanding of how energy actually works inside the eye is what separates a good surgeon from a truly great one. It's what ensures better outcomes and safer procedures for patients.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If we can use sound as a scalpel today, what other invisible forces are we on the verge of mastering tomorrow? What's going to be the next unseen tool that completely revolutionizes how we heal the human body? Definitely something to think about.